Hello, welcome again to Benchwarmers. Going to talk some golf coming up, but joined first by Lauren Cornay, a dietitian with Avera Health in Sioux Falls. And how are you? How's summer going?
Going great. I can't believe it's almost over.
I hear you. All right. We're going to talk about what you eat, how it impacts sports performance. And the first question is, does it as much as we think it does? What you eat affects how you perform.
Absolutely. You know, what you take in affects how your body is able to perform. So the better you eat, the better you perform. There
is a direct correlation, and colleges and corporations spend millions. There are some colleges, University of Ohio State, University of Michigan, that spend like $2.5 million a year feeding their athletes because they think it leads to better performance, and they got to take care of them anyway. But that Avera has people like you around because there is this direct connection between being healthy and being able to perform athletically and what you eat.
Absolutely. I mean, just to perform, period, you need to have good base nutrition. And then if you want your body to kind of exceed or really excel at something, then you need to go above and beyond and make sure it's getting exactly what it needs, when it needs, so that you can do your best.
All right, and all different levels of performance we're talking about, all different ages as well. When you get older, you're not going to have quite as much energy no matter what you eat. Is that just a fact? No?
You know, you occasionally see these stories about people in their 70s and 80s running marathons. And I mean, if you really treat your body as a well-oiled machine, I think it can perform at a high level for a long time.
Okay, good to hear. We've got it here just in our sports network. We've got a race car driver. We've got a guy that runs sprint triathlons, the whole gamut. Tennis players, a swimmer, a guy that rides bike for 50 miles at a time. But those are different ways to burn energy. But does everybody get energy the same way?
Yes.
You can specify, but people can get energy and burn it in different ways, but it all comes from the same sources, right?
Absolutely, yep. It is carbohydrate, protein, and fat in the foods that we eat. Those are the things that are providing you energy. Now, how much of each of those things you might need or want is going to depend on whether you're the race car driver or the tennis player, whether you're 13 or 93. Those percentages then change, but it's still those three nutrients that are providing your body the energy to
carbohydrates, protein, and
fat.
And there's certain diets that are out there that everybody's on some kind of diet where you want to cut down on carbs, but they all go together. You can eat high protein, but you're not going to get as much out of it if you cut out carbs because you need the carbs for the protein to work the way it does, right?
Yeah, they do kind of have their own special processes in the body, but trying to eliminate one or get really, really low on one in general isn't best for your body as a whole. So I cut out carbs, now my brain isn't functioning as well because that's the primary fuel for your brain. So sure, maybe your muscles are doing great and you can lift, but you can't remember where you parked your car when you leave the gym. So I really do think you need all three.
All right, and there is that connection certainly between what the brain tells you and what the body can do, right? There's a difference between being all hopped up and we think of, I've got this great alertness and this mental energy, but my body might not be on the same page. But it can go the other way too. You can be totally lethargic in your brain, but your body still has enough fuel to go out and do a workout or practice or whatever, right?
Sure. So if you're eating, well-balanced meals 3 times a day, your body has what it needs. So maybe you didn't sleep well and you're feeling lethargic and tired, but your body absolutely could still go to the gym and perform or race and perform just as well. But we do see people that want to take like the stimulants, the caffeine and that sort of thing. And there is a link that, maybe a little bit of caffeine does help endurance performance a little bit, but it's not an excuse or a reason to take absurd levels more than the 400 milligrams that's recommended for any of us. Yeah.
Okay. If I want to go get fired up, I think, and go do something, I'll eat peanut butter and honey. Are those good sources of quick energy? What are some things that are quick energy, like a half hour you're going to go do something? What do you want to eat a half hour before that?
I would probably say, do you really need anything half an hour before you go? Now, if you're gonna run a marathon or you're gonna be at the gym for several hours, then sure, give yourself a little bit of boost. But if you're going to the gym for 60 minutes, unless you really haven't had a whole lot nutritionally, I doubt you're gonna see much of a benefit from those quick calories.
Really? Okay. So you don't need something to get you boosted up. What about afterwards? There's been you've done some research on chocolate milk versus water. Chocolate milk's a big thing right now. You go work out, you have some chocolate milk. It's supposed to do what Gatorade does, do what a sports drink does. Is chocolate milk good for you post-workout?
I mean, same sort of thing. If I'm, I'd never work out hard enough that I could justify a glass of chocolate milk. I'm running for 45 minutes. I'm doing 10 to 15 minutes of machines. I don't need anything.
Even at that, you're not working out hard enough where you need to replenish that?
No,
All right.
no. If you're training for a marathon or some bigger sport event where, you're burning a lot of calories, you're at the gym for several hours, high intensity, then sure, those things can really kind of help to give you nutrients quickly so that your muscles can start rebuilding, that the fluid's where it needs to be. And
all right, so for high school and college athletes, these things might come into play. But for an old guy that's just going to go get in the gym seriously for 30 minutes, we're overdoing it on the pre and the post workout.
I think that's a fair argument. I mean, and I have a husband at home. He has the big container of whey protein powder, and I don't know how many times I've told him, I don't think you need it.
Okay.
Because you got to think, especially if you're a lifter, if you're not burning that many calories, you could actually gain weight by drinking those sorts of things. Because if you're not using the energy, then your body's still going to turn it to fat.
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the connection between food and mood, how you can kind of trick yourself into feeling good. If you feel good, you're going to go on to do something. But whether it's a game or a power workout, like we're talking about, how mood and food go together.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Avera Orthopedics.
And welcome back to Benchwarmers with Lauren Cornay from Avera Health. She is a registered dietitian with Avera. And we're just talking about how we get into, I'm former athlete, way former athlete, but athletes today, they get into all these situations where they do need maybe some supplements in their diet. We're talking about high school and college kids. But for other people like the tennis players and the people that are going out and jogging, the 40 and 50-year-olds, if you just eat real food, you're going to be fine. You don't need that other stuff, right?
Absolutely. From someone who never leaves the couch, to someone who's exercising fairly regularly, to someone who's at a healthy weight, to someone who's really overweight. It doesn't matter. All of us, I think, need to switch to this focus more of real food. We have this unfortunate habit, we want to find the product that's going to fix it all, that's going to make us feel great.
Right.
Real food will make you feel great.
All right, yeah. And food and mood certainly go together because of the chemicals in your brain and the way those things work and affected by food. You did a recent 10 ways to improve your mood with food. And number one is find a balance between the carbs and the protein we were talking about before. You don't need to cut out carbs. You don't need to cut out fat totally if you have protein and carbs and fat all responsibly together, right?
Exactly, yep. Carbs play a very big role in brain health and function. So you do find that if you cut them out, you get really low. You do get irritable. You get forgetful. So no, I'm not a big proponent of cutting them out. Plus, I just really like them.
Well,
they're really delicious.
Carbs are what? We're talking about pasta, bread. What's
Yep,
a carb?
anything that's grain-based. So pasta, rice, bread. Yep.
All right. Breakfast is the most important meal. That is true. You hear that from your mother, but it's true, right?
It is important. It's interesting that maybe I'll have to come back and talk about that because there's a lot of new research that's kind of saying maybe it isn't that important.
No, seriously?
I know. Yeah. But for most of us, I would say it's good to kind of start the day with enough energy to head to work with our brain kind of able to focus, got some fuel. Yep.
What would be the argument that it's not that important?
Well, so for a long time, even breakfast skippers, we'd say, you need to eat something.
Right.
But weight-wise, and the research I've been reading is kind of weight-focused, but maybe we're just making matters worse. We're pushing them to eat calories that they don't need or want. So.
All right. B vitamins, and again, this all comes down to B vitamins and iron and the things that you do need. And again, you go back to real foods. You don't need supplements. You don't need protein powder to get these things. But if you eat grains and leafy vegetables and the right amount of meat and proteins, you're set.
Yep. You can go take a multivitamin and that's great, but we don't really know how well that's utilized and absorbed. But if it's found naturally in that food, there's a better chance your body knows what to do with it and how to get it where it needs to go. So eating a well-balanced diet with real food, it's more likely to keep you from getting those vitamin kind of deficiencies that can lead to depression.
All right. And if you're getting enough of the good stuff, you can eat a little bit of the other stuff. Chocolate, you say, is good. can be good.
Absolutely, you need some of those, hormone boosts that, make you feel good. So a little bit of chocolate every now and then is not a problem.
All right. Again, I keep coming back to this, is we think we need more stimulants and more post-workout things than we do. And again, talking about middle-aged people like myself, but not college athletes, where they need more of that stuff. But if you're just trying to stay healthy in your middle age, you're pretty well set.
But I would say even your high school kids, they're starting these 2-a-day workouts for football and volleyball and all of that. Do they need a protein drink, or do they need a turkey sandwich on some whole wheat bread? I would argue that maybe they do just as well with the turkey sandwich.
All right, interesting stuff.
Sorry.
Oh, that's very interesting, because you can go find all this information on Avera's website with Lauren Cornay, and it's just fascinating to me, the connection between food and mood and performance and everything else. Appreciate it.
Yes,
Thanks
thank
a
you.
lot. All right, going to talk some golf when we come back here on Benchwarmers. Welcome back to Benchwarmers. Going to talk some golf now, joined by Danny Sinksen, who is the new, I guess kind of new, Director of Player Development at the Sioux Falls Golf Courses, Keene Park, Prairie Green, and Elmwood in Sioux Falls. What is this position that's kind of new for you?
Yeah, so I was head pro at Elmwood for the last 10 years, and just kind of over the years, kind of just developing more lessons and more people coming, and we just kind of found the need that this is something we can spend more attention to, more time. So being at all three facilities has been great. I'm able to kind of meet the different needs in town, as far as it's nice to be close to a location, and certain people like to be at different spots. So, Elmwood's still my home. I would say that. I got my office at Elmwood, but spending quite a few days at Prairie Green and Elmwood, and just reaching all kinds of clients. Anywhere from, very beginners at 5 years old to I gave a lesson to an 83-year-old the other day. So, just really any type of player, and then setting up more opportunities for junior golf. We're running hard with PGA Junior League. We just had our last match today with Prairie Green, and also we have the Sioux Falls Junior Golf Tour, which is in our third stop here at Prairie Green tomorrow.
All right. Yeah, busy lessons.
Yeah.
If you want instruction, Danny Sinksen is the guy to see at the Sioux Falls courses. Also the head coach of the men's golf program at Augustana. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the best of both worlds for you. You love to coach, don't you?
Yeah, because as a player, you're always kind of managing the course a little bit different. Like lessons, spending more time working on swings and things like that. And we're kind of getting into some of that course management stuff with some of my more experienced students. But in college golf, we're spending way more time on the course. How do we score better? How do we do these things? And it's been really fun for me. I've always had a passion for that type of the sport, and just getting them around the course. Hopefully this year we got a little more experience on our team, and I think we'll have a really good season.
All right. Knowing the game and knowing the golf swing like you obviously do is one thing, but it doesn't mean that you can necessarily teach it. It's hard to teach somebody these skills, isn't it? How do you kind of connect with the students that you're talking about, the kids you're teaching, all the way up to the 83-year-old?
Right. That's a really good question. I feel like my first few years of teaching, I spent more time like, hey, this is what I did while I was out playing. Yeah. And I enjoyed that part of it. But as I kept going, just finding different ways to connect with every student. I'm definitely more of a teacher. I like to explain what's going on. Okay, why did I hit the ball off to the right like that? Or why did I hit it so high? Or why is it short right? What are these things that are happening to make that go? And if you can explain that, obviously that's great, but then what are the fixes? What are the drills we can do to get you in the spot we want? So that's been kind of my big push this year, and just developing more drills every year and just learning more. As golf pros, we're all learning from each other. And honestly, watching my students, I learn a lot too. Some days you're like, oh, that really worked today. And then another day you kind of go back to the drawing board, like, I think we need to access that and kind of go forward. So it's still a learning environment for me too.
But it's really show and tell, right?
Right,
some people
absolutely.
are better when you show them, some people are better when you tell them, but you can kind of combine both of those elements.
Right, there's so many different ways to reach the students, whether it's setting up drills with things that I call it put things in the way to make sure they don't do it, or just getting them a feel. It might feel like, man, this is really different. I always tell my students, like, weird is okay, bad is not. Well, we don't want to feel something bad, but if it's a little weird, that's good. That means we're making a change. Just lots of different ways to show it. I even use, videos on YouTube showing different swings of professionals. We use my V1 Swing Golf, where you can see different videos from the professionals. Every week we get awesome educational tools by just watching the PGA Tour and LPGA Tour. So there's all kinds of stuff to see out there for visuals and just helping out. So.
All right. Speaking of which, we sent a couple of our people out to Elmwood this morning and recorded their swings. We're going to show you those, and we're going to see what Danny sees in the golf swing and how you make some little adjustments as you go. So we'll do that when we come back. Welcome back with Danny Sinksen, the Director of Player Development at the Sioux Falls Golf Courses, Elmwood, Prairie Green, and Keene Park. And talk about yourself. You're still playing some competitive golf in like the PGA teaching pro events, Minnesota sectionals, things like that, right?
Yeah, so I mean, basically there's kind of that other level. I mean, you got the PGA Tour that everybody says, but we're all PGA certified too on this level. And basically it's all the guys that are teaching and working behind the counter and doing all that stuff. They kind of have our own circuit, I'd say. Most of our stuff's in the Minneapolis area, so a little more travel with 2 kids. It's been a little less in between, but still get up there quite a bit. This year I was fortunate enough to make it to the National Club Pro in South Carolina, and I made it to the National TaylorMade event and got to play Pebble Beach and Spyglass. So those events were really big, and you're playing against a bunch of really good people, and I did okay in them. I held my own, but definitely kind of that stage I want to be at. And so definitely keeping it sharp, so I know what I'm doing out there, and still enjoying the game a lot. I love to play.
You still got the cred because you can still play.
Yeah.
How much do you tinker with your swing, even at the level that you're at? How much are you still playing with the swing?
I think my students would even kind of see it like every once in a while I'll just kind of do some of the stuff they're doing with them. I think it kind of helps them to see that I'm still working on the same stuff. I mean, I do drills right before I swing on the course every time. I mean, things that just help me get in the right spot. I know the swing, I can know what I want to feel, but now at a certain age, your body doesn't cooperate as often as you want it to either. But oh well, I know. But that's kind of the stage that you get to. You want to make sure your body's working for you, but also just always working on the swing. Like, what are the feels that you want out on the golf course? So,
all right, you used some video instruction you were talking about. We sent a couple of our people over to Elmwood in the driving range to get you to assess their swings here. This is our man Nick, who has got some game. Just take a look at what he's got here with the driver. What do you see?
Well, I like his ball position and his setup. I mean, he gets through really nice as far as, gaining enough power. One of the things, I think his angle of attack is just a little steep. So what I mean by that is on his downswing, we're kind of hitting it on our way down. So what would happen is he'd hit the top of the club face quite a bit, so he'd hit it kind of high. And then obviously I'm just getting a small portion here, and he might catch it pretty good, but I would probably move him up a little bit and just really focus on a nice high, maybe right finish to get a little more launch. Probably the only other thing I'd see is just maybe a slight flip with his hands. So we'd work on rotation a little bit. The more that our body can rotate and swinging through to the target, like, you don't have to flip those hands as much.
All right. That's amazing that you can pick that stuff out. Now, let's go to, this is Chloe Edgar, who's our social media specialist here. I don't know what her level of experience is, but she's got the 7-iron here. What do you see?
So, I will get to the side view here. One of the things I like right away, and so I always like to pick out some things that I like. She has a really good athletic movement. What I mean by that, she gets all that power through to the target. You can see her belly button's facing towards the target, something I always talk about. She's off her back foot. Those things are really good for the golf swing. Things that maybe tell me that she hasn't played a ton, I'd probably work on her grip right away. So grip would kind of help her be able to hinge that club a little bit more on the back. And just help her kind of release the club through a bit. So she loads up fine, she gets through it, but that's kind of that same flip I was kind of talking about before, is that she kind of helps the ball up in the air instead of launching through it.
And now here with the driver, that one looked pretty good.
Yeah, she hit that one really good. So obviously driver to me is a little bit better when you're getting a little bit of that flip, you can kind of hit up into it and it goes, but those irons kind of having to drive through it will help her get the ball up a little bit easier. So a little bit of grip, a little bit of hinge in that backswing, but I say this, like, you can tell she's played other sports because golf is still an extremely athletic movement. And just like anything else, we want to get through that ball, and that's where our power comes from.
So somebody comes to you for a lesson. Is this kind of how you start?
Yeah, I love to start with video. Kind of first thing we do is I get them on. I mean, it's so much better than the first couple of years I taught. We used to have to bring the big camcorder out. And we had our laptops out there, and now you can do it from an iPad or a phone, and it's really convenient. It goes fast. You can show them instant feedback, and even at the end of the lesson, my favorite thing to say, hey, this is where you started. this is where we got to in 1 hour. What's going to happen if we keep working on this?
And you just fix one little thing that compounds.
Try
to
not
the
to do
next
too
little
much
thing.
each time, but it really works for all levels at that point too. So.
And a lot of people are afraid that haven't ever played before, whether they're 5 or 15 or 50, are afraid to maybe even go try it. But you can just go out and start hitting balls and start there, right?
Right. I mean,
problem
you
with that?
got to get used to just what it feels like. It's a different feel as far as that club in your hands, but once again, if you played any other sports, it's still just an athletic movement. So working on getting through to the ball, you get that contact a few times, but having some direction, like getting somebody to kind of look at it and be like, okay, here's some things you can work on when you go to the range. I see a lot of people just hitting and they get frustrated pretty fast. And at least when they come get a lesson from a professional, they give them some direction, something to go for. And I guess I really think it'd be like learning how to play a piano with nobody telling you anything.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I like to say the golf swing is. Like come get your first couple lessons and then you kind of run with it. But it definitely gets you off on the right foot.
All right, one more minute here with Danny. When we come back, we're going to talk about, in the pro realm, who's the best player on the planet right now in professional golf.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Avera Orthopedics.
Welcome back. A couple more seconds here with Danny Sinksen. Who's the best player on the planet right now?
I think it's pretty hard to argue that Brooks Koepka is not the best player. I mean, he's stepping up to majors and making it look easy. I love. He's a little arrogant about it right now. He's saying he doesn't have to practice, but that guy's in the gym every morning. I mean, he is the type of golfer we're all seeing these days.
And
Super athletic.
Yeah, you see him as the future of where the pros are going. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's where everybody's going to have to get to. I mean, he's hitting it as far as anybody's ever seen, and he's got the short game to back it up too. So.
But practice is good.
Practice is good. Please practice.
Appreciate it, sir. Back
Thank
to the
you
range
so
and
much.
back to
You
lessons.
bet.
And all right, Danny Sinksen, if you want to learn how to play the game, get a hold of him at Sioux Falls Golf. Thanks for watching. See you next week.